You're listening to Covering the Fields with your host, Joe Ellison.
Hello, sports fans from the Blue Bowl in beautiful downtown Carson City. Welcome to Covering the Field, the weekly program that analyzes all sports, handicaps them, and makes and reviews predictions. I'm your host, Joe Ellison, and today we're going to talk about pro football, college football, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, the Ryder Cup, and our You Got Hose segment. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Please give us your feedback, tell us your You Got Hose stories, and visit our brand new Covering the Field website. And a special thank you to all the firefighters and first responders battling the Nevada and California wildfires. Now, kicking off this week, I'd like to introduce our National Football League expert, Charles O'Loughlin. How are you doing today, Charles?
I'm great, Joe. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. So, Charles, week 2 is in the books. What impressed you the most last week, good or bad?
How about them Carolina Panthers showing up? You know, I had them being my wild card in the NFC. I really like them. They're coming together. Sam Darnold's doing his thing. That defense is showing out. Other than that, the Patriots beating the Jets up. I like that. That Patriots defense is back.
How about the Cowboys defense? A little surprise there?
I was surprised. You know, I thought the Cowboys were going to get in a lot of shootouts this year. I told you to take the over, and unfortunately, that didn't cash. But it showed me a lot about the Cowboys, that they can win games, and they can win games how they need to win games, whether it's, you know, chucking the ball around the field or playing sound defense. And Micah Parsons, the real deal, man. I think they got one of the best defensive players in the draft for sure.
Well, that's who I picked. I got him at 6-1 to be Defensive Rookie of the Year.
That's a good bet.
So Kansas City's streak of 15 straight September wins came to an end. Mahomes was quarterback for 11 of those. That was a record for any month, and that finally ended.
Yeah, and that game was pretty surprising, Joe. Lamar Jackson was the best player on that field. He willed that team to the win. You know, had a bad first half, but came back in that second and really showed out. You know, I think the Ravens can pull something together at the end of this year if they can get it going and maybe, you know, beat the injury bug early.
So, Charles, how did your predictions go last week?
Well, we went 500 on straight bets, and then if you took my teaser, this would have been the first week we lost the teaser. We went, of course, how about them Florida Gators covering against the Alabama Crimson Tide? I got them at plus 15, only lost the game by 2. If you watch the game, Florida had a chance to actually win that game. Other than that, that Chargers and Cowboys over didn't cash at 55. I think it ended at, 40-something?
Oh, 20-17, something like that.
37, something like that. Broncos beat the Jags. I had them at -6. Patriots -6 against the Jets, cashed. Saints and Panthers over was 44. That didn't come in. I think that ended at 33, 34. And then, unfortunately, the Dolphins got blown out by the Bills, which was very surprising.
Well, Tua got hurt. That was a big factor.
That was.
But it's early in the season. It's tough to make a lot of winning picks this early.
It is.
Now, looking forward to week 3, which starts tomorrow. Quarterback injuries have to be the big story. Houston's Tyrod Taylor is out tomorrow night, being replaced by third-round rookie draft pick Davis Mills. Washington's Ryan Fitzpatrick was already out last week, supplanted by Taylor Heineke. Chicago's Andy Dalton is out, being subbed in by Justin Fields. And Miami's Tua Tagovailoa is out, replaced by Jacoby Brissett. Indianapolis's Carson Wentz is questionable, with Jacob Eason the backup. Las Vegas's Derek Carr and Pittsburgh's Ben Roethlisberger are hurt, but as of now are expected to play. Charles, how do these injuries affect your thinking going into week 3?
It makes you want to hold on to your money a little bit. You know, the quarterback position is very important in the NFL, and that Derek Carr one, he's going to go up against a great defensive team, in the Miami Dolphins. So, you know, you want to kind of be careful on that game. Other than that, I love that Justin Fields is in now. I think the Chicago Bears have an opportunity to be competitive. You know, we talked about this before the season opened. You have to put Fields in. He gives you a better chance to win. He's more dynamic. He reminds me a lot of Deshaun Watson, really electrifying on the field. Other than that, Jacoby Brissett, I saw him play in Arizona. He won a couple games in Arizona last year. He's going to be a solid backup for the Dolphins, so they got something going over there too.
So, Charles, do you have any point spread predictions for this week?
I do. So I'm going to give you 2 this week, and you can check out the rest of my picks in my teaser card on coveringthefield.com. But the ones I'm going to give you this week is I love the Thursday night pick, Panthers at Texans. You're going to give me the Panthers -8. I'm going to take that. Matt Rule's coaching that team up. That offense can score. They can run the ball. Those wide receivers are fast. I don't think the Texans are going to have the DBs to cover that. The Panthers' defense is sound. They play bully ball. They play bully ball on both on both sides of the trenches, offensive and defensive line, and that's held true in the NFL. There's 2 things that have held true. If you can control the line of scrimmage, and defense wins championships, and they got both of those right now because that defense is coming together. So I like that. And then my Sunday pick, I got to go home, take the early slate, Arizona Cardinals at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Arizona Cardinals have put up 72 points this year so far. Kyler Murray's going off. DeAndre Hopkins is going off. I don't think the Jags are going to have the DBs to cover that Arizona Cardinals wide receiver group, one of the best in the NFL. The Arizona Cardinals have a really good defense, top 10 defense, and that defensive line is nasty. Give me that defensive line. Give me Chandler Jones. Give me J.J. Watt against that, okay, mediocre Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line. -7, I'll take that all day.
Okay. It's still early in the season, but I've got 5 picks. Arizona is one of my picks.
Good choice.
The Jags haven't shown me anything yet. I like Tennessee minus the 5.5. I got no faith in a hurt Carson Wentz or even a healthy Carson Wentz or this Eason guy.
Or a Carson Wentz that rolls his ankle twice in the same game, huh?
2 different angles. New England -3 against New Orleans. The Saints looked awful last week. Seattle -1.5. This is a scary one, but I think Seattle bounces back. And Green Bay +3.5. I like at San Francisco. The Aaron Rodgers Bowl, went to Butte College in Chico, went to Cal, wanted to be a 49er. San Francisco snubbed him and let him sit there in the drawing room till pick number 25 when Green Bay finally picked him. The 49ers picked Alex Smith instead. So I like Green Bay because of Aaron Rodgers' revenge game.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Joe. Like I said, go to coveringthefield.com to see the rest of my picks, but I am with you on that one. I do like that pick a lot. Question for you, though. You got the Seahawks beating the Minnesota Vikings. So the Minnesota Vikings are going to be a home dog, and we saw what the Vikings did with that Arizona Cardinals team that, in a lot of power rankings are a top 10 team right now. You think the Seahawks are going to be able to stay in that, stay competitive with them?
Yeah, I think they win. I just figure they're the better team. They got the better quarterback. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Might as well just throw the over in there, too.
Take the over.
Yeah, that might be the better bet, actually. But I'm just giving out sides today. Minnesota seems to be finding a way to lose. Missed field goal last week. Going to overtime the week before.
And I'll tell you
and
what,
the spread is only 1.5.
That's true. Losing by missed field goals sucks. The Arizona Cardinals lost 2 games last year by missed field goals, so I know how that feels.
So, Charles, have you made any wagers on any teams recently to make the playoffs, win their division, or capture the Super Bowl since the season started?
Yeah, I took the Arizona Cardinals last week at 4.5 to 1 to win the division. I don't see a better team out of the West than them. They can score. They can stop people. Other than that, I need a little bit longer to see who's going to make a playoff run because I've seen teams get super hot and then fade out in the middle of the end of the season. But I told everybody before the season, I do not like the Chiefs this year. Stay away from the Chiefs. You got the Raiders 0-2. 2-0. You got the Broncos 2-0. You got the Chargers 1-1. Kansas City's 1-1, and they haven't even started in the division yet where they're going to get beat up. So other than that, I have not taken anything else. The Ravens are looking good, though. That was one of my preseason picks. The Ravens are the real deal if Lamar Jackson can stop making boneheaded throws in the first half.
Well, Charles, you know how I love stats, so I'm going to throw some at you. Since 1990, when the league switched to 8 4-team divisions, if a club starts 2-0, it makes the playoffs 62% of the time. But since '07, that has gone down to 54%. So Charles, out of Denver, Las Vegas, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Arizona, San Francisco, and the Los Angeles Rams, statistics say 3 of them won't make the playoffs. Who do you think those 3 are?
San Francisco 49ers, Los Angeles Rams, and then, who throw another team in there? I'll throw the Raiders, even though we're in Nevada. I think even that's a risky pick, man, because the Raiders are looking good right now. I don't know, Joe. I don't even know if I could say the Rams or the 49ers. The NFC West is going to put 3 teams in the playoffs this year, so it's going to be crazy. I couldn't even tell you out of those teams, Joe.
I think your heart got in the way there.
I'd have to
throwing
agree
in
with
San
that.
Francisco and Los Angeles Rams in there. The logical choices will be Denver, Carolina, and Las Vegas. The teams that
Vegas
appear
is good, though, Joe, and they're not beating bad teams. They're beating really good teams.
But the thing about Vegas is they started 2-0 last year, but finished 8-8 and missed the playoffs. In fact, the Raiders have failed to reach the postseason 17 out of the last 18 years. Before the season, I had Vegas finishing 9-8 and not making the playoffs. I'm thinking that might happen again.
Yeah, but they can play defense this year, man, so I'm hoping we'll see. We'll see, right?
Long way to go.
Yes, sir.
San Francisco is a funny team. Jimmy Garoppolo, you threw them out. His record is 26-8 as a starter, 24-8 with San Francisco. How do you explain that?
Throwing them out of the playoffs?
No, I mean, the fact that he's so good, but yet he's considered to be not so good, and maybe they're not going to make the playoffs.
Well, yeah, Joe, so when I think Jimmy Garoppolo, I put him in the same field as a Kirk Cousins, to me, a Dak Prescott, trying to think of some other quarterbacks, a Derek Carr, a guy that can win games, a guy that can go out, sling the ball if he needs to sling the ball around, control the ball if he needs to control the ball, but he can go out and he can win games, and that's very important.
Kind of like Tim Tebow can win games?
Exactly.
Okay. So to finish off, Charles, if a team starts 0-2, what would you guess the chances of that team making the postseason? From 1 to 100%.
I'm going to say 33.
12%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a killer. In fact, all 11 teams that were 0-2 last year did not get in the playoffs. And as far as the Super Bowl is concerned, only 3 out of 258 teams starting 0-2 won it all.
Okay.
So those will change with 14 teams making the playoffs. So the last part we're going to talk about, out of Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Detroit, Minnesota, and the New York Jets and Giants, who has the best chance to make the playoffs?
I like the Minnesota Vikings. They got a top 10 wide receiver room. They got a top 10 running back. They got a quarterback that can win games because Kirk Cousins is good. That defense is a Mike Zimmer defense. They've always been able to show up. He's a good defensive coach, let's put it that way. So when they come together, they can come together. They got some good players on the defense. So we'll see what happens there.
I'm going to go off on a limb and just take a shot on the Giants just because the division is kind of weak. It would take...
Giants are horrible.
I know, but I'm trying to pick
Joe
somebody.
Judge will be out of there this year, maybe in the middle of this year if he doesn't.
I know. I already predicted he'd get
Good
fired.
Lord,
Yeah.
gosh, they are god-awful.
Fact of the matter is, I don't think any of these teams make the playoffs.
Any of the NFC East teams?
Just one.
Just joking with
Just
you.
Joe. But anyway, I just had to throw it out. But anyway, so hurry up if you can and give us your college picks without any big explanation.
Yeah, my college picks, I'm going to take Liberty against Cuse this week. They're -6. And then other than that, I'm going to take Fresno State against UNLV. I got them at -30.5 this morning. I think that's a good one. And you can also throw those on the teasers that you can check out at coveringthefield.com.
Well, thank you, Charles. And we'll have you on again next week to talk some more pro football.
You have a good day, Joe.
Next up, we have our college football analyst, Big Richard Martin. How are things going, Big Rich?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on the show, Joe.
So, Richard, what were the big stories in college football last week?
Well, I think the biggest story was Alabama. What about that? Giving up 440 yards total offense to Florida in the swamp. crazy game. Alabama jumped off to a 21-3 lead, and then it just seems like the wheels fall off. They rolled up their sleeves and just had a great game. They should have won the game, but there was 5 quarters. I don't know if Alabama would still be undefeated.
245 rushing.
Right.
That's crazy. What else caught your eye?
Well, you know what's catching my eye is the Mountain West. I mean, they are just, manhandling in the Pac-10.
Yeah. Let's see. We had Fresno State beating UCLA, San Diego State beating Utah. Unfortunately, Nevada didn't win. But, Mountain West was looking pretty strong.
Nevada did beat Cal in Cal, so it tells you that, they can play with the big boys.
So let's see. The quarterback for Utah just up and quit at the end of that game, unfortunately.
Yeah, he was on the the transfer portal anyway. He couldn't make it through the season.
And I guess the Fresno State quarterback is a Washington transfer. Looks pretty awesome.
If you listen real close, you might hear something there, Joe. Heisman.
Yeah, UCLA beat LSU, and now Fresno State beat UCLA.
Yeah,
so.
Jake Hayner has 1,464 yards in passing, leading the nation. He has 10 touchdowns and only 1 interception. And he had his 1 loss to Oregon, and they had that game. Oregon only won in the last 3 or 4 minutes of that game.
How about Clemson only beating Georgia Tech 14-8?
Yeah, Clemson, they lost their defensive tackle, Tyler Davis. He was out the first game with COVID, and, Clemson's always playing good defense. It seems like they just can't get their offense together right now. I don't think there's no reason to worry. They lost their first game, but, they're still in first place in that ACC.
Well, I noticed Wake Forest. We were talking about Florida State last week. Wake Forest beat Florida State 35-14. Florida State is reaching the lowest depths they've reached in a long time.
Exactly.
And Northern Arizona beat Arizona. I love it when the FCS teams beat the Division I teams.
Exactly. Arizona is 0-3.
So were there any other significant injuries to report?
No, not this week, but last week, big game this week, Texas A&M lost their quarterback to Colorado when they were playing at Mile High. Haynes King went out. He was their redshirt freshman. He broke his tibia. So they have Zach Quezada coming in and playing this week in a big game, and we'll talk about that later in our picks.
Well, Big Rich, how did your point spread predictions turn out last week?
Last week we were 5-3 and 7-4 overall at a whopping 63.3%. So we had a little bit of lettuce for that salad on Sunday to watch the NFL.
So, Big Rich, what are your selections for this week?
Well, let's just go with that Notre Dame at Wisconsin. Now, it's at Wisconsin, but it's at a neutral field. It's at Soldier Field. So the big story there is Jack Cohen. He was the 2019 starting quarterback for Wisconsin. Had a great season. They went, I think he was 7-2. Didn't win, of course, against Ohio State, but he had a great season. He goes to the transfer portal last year. This year, he's the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. So he also has Avery Davis on there, and Jack Cohen has 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for 828 yards. So he's doing good. The game's at Soldier Field, but I like Wisconsin. They should have beat that game against Penn State. They had some key turnovers inside the red zone. They couldn't get it done, but I think the defense comes up, and I'm not really sold on Notre Dame at all. I don't think their defense is very spectacle.
No, they barely beat Toledo, who turned around and lost by 2 touchdowns to Colorado State. So Notre Dame looks a little shaky.
Exactly.
Any other choices?
Yeah, let's go ahead and look at K-State at Oklahoma State. They're playing in Stillwater. This is going to be a tough game. K-State only gives up 15 points per game, and Oklahoma State only gives up 19 points per game. So we're looking at a good defensive game here. The starting quarterback, Skylar Thompson's out with a lower leg injury. So Will Howard got the job done last week against your Nevada Wolfpack, and they showed they have a good defense, and I think they get it done in a good defensive game. The under is 46, and I think that's probably the best bet, under 46 in that game.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they need a quarterback the way they play.
They have Deuce Vaughn. He's an amazing running back, and he's somebody we're also going to be talking about in the Heisman Trophy.
And some more?
Sure. Let's go to your Oklahoma Sooners. They're at home against the West Virginia Mountaineers. Okay, so, West Virginia is averaging 32.3 points per game. So the spread is 16.5. I think Oklahoma gets it done, but 16.5 is way too many points. They have a good offense, and I think they get it done. Let's take West Virginia, take that 16.5.
Okay, well, you're going to go against my Sooners, and after last week, I'm not going to take the Sooners either.
Yeah,
they only won by 7
against Nebraska last week, and Spencer Rattler. I got Rattler. Let's see if he can get it done this week. But I think that West Virginia. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Okay, and next up,
let's go. North Carolina is going to Georgia Tech. Sam Howard's going to get it done there. I think that Georgia Tech did play good defense last week against Clemson, but I think North Carolina is going to get it rolling and just take Sam Howard and just get minus 12.5 and let's take the Tar Heels in that game. And then your other one is Oregon minus 28.5 against Arizona. Like you said, they lost to Northern Arizona. Now they're going to come play the big boys. They're going to come play Oregon. The Oregon Ducks are going to be at home. You got to drop 28.5 in that game. But I like the Oregon Ducks in that game. And let's also go to the Friday night game. I'm going to go with Charles. I like Fresno State. I was just there last weekend. That town is just rattling about how good their team is, and I think that whole town shows up for that game.
Well, you guys are in deep trouble because I also like Fresno State, minus the 30.5, and my picks were pretty bad last week. I'm not expecting to win, but I like Louisville. Minus 2.5 at Florida State. I'm going to bet against Florida State until they show me something. What did you think about the Stanford plus 5.5 against UCLA? I kind of thought Stanford might be able to hang with them.
Well, I look at the UCLA. They had that game won. It was just a great comeback. I mean, they came down there and scored with under, I think, a minute left. Fresno State comes all the way down. It has a miracle ending. It's just, I think UCLA gets done. They have a great running game. When I saw Stanford play K-State, I mean, it seems like Deuce Vaughn was running all over them. UCLA has a great running attack. They have two great running backs back there, and I think they get it done. I think that 5, and I'm going to take UCLA in that game.
Uh-oh. Okay. You probably will win that one.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, like I said, my picks weren't that good last week.
What about Colorado State at Iowa, Joe? Iowa's a top 10 team. Iowa's rolling right now. They're on a 9-game win streak going back to last year. Tyler Goodson, what a running back he is. He's going to go against get Colorado State, very, very weak team. You got Spencer Petras, doesn't turn the ball over at all. He has 0 interceptions on the year. And I like Iowa minus 23 against Colorado State.
I definitely like that one, too. You got another one?
Sure. What about Rutgers going to Michigan? They're going to the big house. It's 20.5 favorite against Rutgers. Last year, it was a triple overtime game at Rutgers. So I don't think Rutgers has fallen. They're 3-0 this year. Take that 20.5 and let's go Rutgers.
I think they're riding Michigan looking like one of the best years they've had in a long time. The spread might be a little inflated.
And very much so. What about Clemson? What do you think is the only NCAA football team that has not given up an offensive touchdown?
Oh, I don't know. Georgia, maybe? Or
It is Clemson. They have not
Really?
given up a touchdown. They gave up 8 points last week, but that was 2 field goals and a safety, so you can't blame the defense for a safety. So Clemson rolls this week, take them plus minus that 10.5. And the last one, Texas A&M at Arkansas. This is a marquee game. So Texas A&M 3-0, Arkansas 3-0. We'll just talk about a little bit about Arkansas. They manhandled Texas. They got the starting quarterback, was removed from the game because of that defense, and that's very, very loud in Arkansas. And what's the 2 things we know about Arkansas? They love barbecue and they love Arkansas football. So I guarantee you that the Razorbacks will be ready to play. They have a 4-headed backfield. They have 4 legitimate running backs, and I think they get it done this week. Take Arkansas plus the 5.5. I think it's even better just the money line against them.
Well, Texas A&M with a backup quarterback too, right?
Exactly. So he's a freshman, not a redshirt freshman. He's a real freshman. He goes into that hostile environment in Arkansas. I mean, Texas couldn't get it done. I don't think Texas A&M could get it done. And the last one, Michigan State minus 5 against Nebraska. They had a pretty decent game against Oklahoma, but let's talk about Kenneth Walker. Their elite running back. He has 493 yards and 5 touchdowns this year. Their quarterback, Peyton Thorne, has 0 interceptions. So Sparky rolls on. Take Michigan State minus the 5.
So, Big Richard, how did your pro picks go last week?
Picks, I was 2-1. I did lose the Bears game. The Browns game. They didn't cover that 12.5. They only won by 10 against Houston. So every time we talk about how bad Houston is, they come and play a good game. So I don't know, but I'm definitely going to take Cleveland this week against the Cleveland, against the Chicago Bears. I know it's a Bear Bar here at the Blue Bull, and I know my producer's probably going to give me a week suspension for going against his team, but I'm telling you right now, Justin Fields, when Andy Dalton looks better than you, he had 70 yards and an interception, no touchdowns. I think that Cleveland defense gets after him, and I think it's going to be pretty hard for the rookie to go on the road.
Any other pro selections?
I sure do. I'm going to take the Broncos minus that 10.5. They're at home. It's their first home game. They are banged up at wide receiver. Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick's questionable. I think
Jerry Jeudy's out.
And Jerry Jeudy's out for 6 weeks. So, they're banged up in the wide receiving department. But I think they get it done at home. Mile High is just such a home field advantage. And I think they get it done against the Jets. And I think it's going to be hard for Zach Wilson, that loud crowd. And I think they're going to get after him. And Vaughn's going to get after him. They did lose Chubbs. Chubbs has an ankle injury. He's going to have surgery on some bone spurs on his ankle. So Broncos get it done at 10.5. And my last pick is Pitt against Cincinnati. They went off at 6.5 to 7-point favorites. Somebody says that, Big Ben has a sore arm. Big Ben always has a sore arm. He's going to play. He's going to man up, and he's going to be the same old Bengals. He's going to beat the Bengals. -3 is money in the bank.
Thank you, Richard. And we'll have you on later for the You Got Host segment.
Thank you.
Next up, we move on to the Diamonds with our Major League Baseball specialist, Ronnie Mckinnon. How are you feeling today, Ronnie?
Joe, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing fantastic. So, Ronnie, what have we got, like 10 games left in the regular season? Exactly where do the division and wild card races stand?
Right, yeah, there's like 10, 11 games per team left. It's getting pretty exciting. In the American League East, of course, it's Tampa Bay is pretty much going to win that division. And then you have Boston and Toronto, who are tied for the wild card with the Yankees a half a game back. So that's going to go down to the end there with the wild card. Obviously, Chicago White Sox pretty much got the Central wrapped up. And then when it comes to the West, Houston has actually got a pretty good lead over Oakland and Seattle now for the division. But Oakland and Seattle are both only 3 out from the wild card. So that, and with still 10, 11 games to go. So the National League, Atlanta, actually, Philadelphia and the Mets are falling. The Mets are falling fast, but Philadelphia and the Mets are actually closer to winning the division than they are with the wild card. They're 3 and 7 out respectively for the division, but 4.5 and 8.5 out respectively for the wild card. Then we have Milwaukee, who pretty much has the Central wrapped up. St. Louis now has been on a 10-game winning streak, so they are the second wild card behind the Dodgers. Cincinnati has fallen to 4 back for the wild card, and San Diego's fallen to 5 back for the wild card. So,
I think the one everybody really wants to talk about is San Francisco and the Dodgers.
Sure.
And what's going to happen,
Sure,
and where
yeah.
are we at?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. 10 games each to go. The Dodgers are 1 out. They don't play each other. San Francisco plays San Diego 5 more times. And so it could go right down to the very end. It's pretty crazy. They have the 2 best records in all of baseball. So it's pretty exciting. I'm a Dodger fan, but the Giants have just had a phenomenal year, and they're still going.
There's going to be a team that has the second best record in baseball that's going to be playing a 1-game playoff.
That's correct, which I'm not a fan of. I think I've talked to you about that before. Go the whole year and play 1 game. It should be at least 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5.
But you're in favor of the playoff. Would you prefer 4 teams in the playoff, 8 teams in the playoffs, or 5, just like the way they got it, and make it a 2 or 3 game series?
Yeah, I don't mind the extra wild cards. We know why they did it. So why don't you add games to that wild card playoff instead of just 1 and done? Anybody can win 1 game, and so that's the only thing I think that should be changed.
What did you think about the playoffs last year, the COVID year, when we had 8 teams from each league in the playoffs.
Yeah, they added teams because of that year. It was a 60-game season. No, I don't like that.
You don't like that concept at all? It would sure would keep a lot more fans interested and keep more teams going longer.
Yeah, if their team, yeah, right. And then we end up like last year with actually a good team in Houston, but they got into the playoffs at 29-31, 2 games below 500. I just don't. I don't like that. But we see that in basketball and sometimes even football. So what?
Yeah, it happens. It happened last year in football.
Yep.
So how about those Dodgers? That is your team. They've won 8 straight divisions, and they're one back. They got this guy named Scherzer that's apparently pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah, he's won 3 Cy Youngs before, as has Kershaw. But he just pitched a 7-inning shutout again the other day, 7 strikeouts. He's 7-0 since he's been with LA, and he's got a 0.78 ERAs in those 7 games. So he also leads the major leagues with a 2.08 ERA. And he's strong for the Cy Young, which started actually in 1956. So there were some good pitchers before that would have won a few.
Sure.
So right now, Scherzer and Kershaw, both the Dodger pitchers, have won 3 each. There was a year, 2016, actually, when Kershaw should have won another one, but he had the best ERA, but he only pitched 149.1 innings, 149 and 1 out in another. And the rule is that they have to pitch 162 innings, like average of 1 inning per game is how they figured it out. And so he didn't get it that year, and a lot of analysts have said that he should have because, just because he missed the inning count. But, that's the rule, so.
Rules are rules.
Correct.
You wouldn't happen to know when Scherzer last lost a game, would you?
Well, he hasn't for the Dodgers, so, he's pitched 10 times, and they've won 7. They've won them all, but he's 7-0. He got the win in 7 of them.
Well, you would have to go back to May, the last time he lost a game, May 30th.
When he was with Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, he's just, he's always been good, and he's showing that now. And so, as a Dodger fan, it's great to have him.
What about this Triple Crown we were talking about last week? Vladimir Guerrero Jr., is he going to get there?
Well, right now he leads in batting average, and he's tied in home runs, actually, with Salvador Perez from Kansas City. And when it comes to RBIs, which is the third part of the Triple Crown, he's like tied for 4th right now. So we'll see.
Tied for 4th? Doesn't sound like he's going to make it.
Well, no. I mean, tied for 4th. He's close. He's like a couple RBIs away, and there's still like, 10, 11 games to go. So
you mentioned Salvador Perez. Didn't he just break a record last week?
he actually did. Johnny Bench. I think a lot of people remember Johnny Bench. He had hit 45, and so Salvador Perez hit his 46th as a catcher. And to qualify for this, you had to catch actually 75% of your games, because a lot of catchers that are good hitters, they end up getting moved to first base to, so they can still hit, and it's a lot less wear and tear on their body. But both those guys actually did, catch 75% of the time. So.
Well, how about my man Starling Marty that the A's traded for? It seems like he's batting pretty well.
Yeah, he's doing well. Unfortunately, even if he has the best average, he cannot win the batting title because he switched teams, and he has to have so many at-bats per game to qualify.
Well, he switched leagues is the problem.
He switched team and leagues, and
yes.
Yeah, exactly. And what they do is they average 3.1 at-bats per game. So in a 162 game season, that's 502 at-bats. Altogether. But anyway, he can't make it because of not qualifying.
So there was a story, Mookie Betts, that's your buddy there in L.A. now. He was in Cincinnati. That was
It's pretty cool stuff. Playing right field, and this kid TJ Friedl, is that I was trying
Looks
to find
like
how to
Friedl.
pronounce that, and that's anyway. He's 26 years old, but he just got to the show. The big leagues. He's had 4 at bats, a couple hits. He hit his first home run over the right field fence in Cincinnati, and a Cincinnati fan, obviously with all the gear on, caught the ball, and Betts asked the fan for the ball, and the fan didn't even question or think about it. He just threw it right to Mookie Betts, and Mookie Betts ended up giving it to this kid, so he would have that,
souvenir home run
for his first home run. And I thought that was cool. But what's even cooler is that Mookie Betts, when he went back out to right field the next inning, brought an autographed bat and gave it to that same fan. So,
all right. Any other stories you want to share? That was a pretty cool story.
yeah, that's cool stuff. So I think the races are just exciting now, just getting down to this point. And I just wanted to mention too that I will. Once it comes to the playoffs, starting with the wild card and the playoffs and all that, I will have some, predictions and some bets for it. And
that's what we do. We make predictions.
And I'll have all that all the way through the playoffs to the World Series, and so I'll be doing that.
Okay. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Thank you, Ronnie, for your insight. We'll have you on again next week for some more talk about some Major League Baseball.
Right on, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Our final guest today is all-around sports lover, Gator Gates. How goes it today, Gator?
Oh, I'm great, Joe. Thank you.
So I've got to tell you, Gator, I am so looking forward to watching the Ryder Cup this weekend. To those of you unfamiliar with the Ryder Cup, it's a match play golf competition every 2 years, pitting the United States versus Europe. And it just always gets super intense and emotional. The 43rd version is being battled out at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. Gator, what thoughts do you have going into this year's competition?
Well, Joe, when we talked about it the first time, the U.S. was at a minus 180. Now, if you go down to the books today, you can get it at a minus 210. When I first was looking, I saw that Steve Stricker had all these rookies in the field. I was kind of trying to figure out what he was trying to do. I went through the list, and when you start looking at the USA team, you got Cantlay, Spieth, Scheffler, DeChambeau. They are all really good players singly, but I'm not exactly sure that they can come together like Europe does and play as a team.
Well, that's what I was thinking. The most important thing to note is that defending champion Europe has won 7 out of 9 and 9 out of the last 12 competitions. So how can that be? The United States owns 10 out of the top 13 players, according to the World Golf Rankings, and Europe has only 1.
Right.
Why
Joe.
does Europe always beat us at the Ryder Cup in one of our best sports?
Well, I think it's the camaraderie, Joe. I think that Europe plays better as a group, and I think that the United States plays like individual. And now the Ryder Cup is a group competition for 3 days. That's what I think, Joe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I happen to agree with you 100%. The United States is a bunch of individuals, and Europe definitely does come together. I think you're spot on that. So who do you think is going to win the Cup this time around?
Well, if you go back to 2018, the last time in Paris, USA won the first 3 matches, and then Europe came up and won the next 8 to go on to keep the Cup. I don't know, Joe. I really want USA to win overall, but when you start looking at the individual matchups for betting purposes, not individual matchups, the first day they're going to have a 4-ball tournament, and then they're going to have a four-some tournament for the first 2 days. I really like Europe. Europe in the 4-ball is at a plus 195. In the foursome, they're in the plus 185, and the day winner, they're at a plus 165.
Well, I'm totally with you again. I'm picking Europe again. The price is excellent at plus 220. Either one of those sections that you just mentioned is all plus money. How are they going to win it? Well, they're going to be winning one of those 4 balls or
Well, this is kind of confusing, Joe. I'd like just to put this out there that if you're betting for the whole event, you have two different ways to bet it. You have a two-way and you have a three-way. People that bet soccer know what I'm talking about because you see this a lot. But basically what it is that in two-way, if there is a tie, Europe is going to still retain the cup. So you'll see that the books have it to lift the cup. The three-way, you can actually bet the tie, which is at 11-1.
Well, why wouldn't you just bet Europe and the tie just in case, just a little bit, and get that 11-1? But I mean, the odds of it landing on a tie, pretty slim.
I agree,
I can't
very
remember the
slim.
last time it's actually been a tie. I just can't ever understand why the U.S. is always favored and they usually lose, but that's just the way it is.
I think if people are betting with their heart and not their head, Joe.
I think you're absolutely right. Tiger Woods won't be playing as he continues to recover from his one-car accident. Left him with a broken leg, ankle, and foot. Not that that matters, though, because Woods has been a part of a Cup-winning team only once and lost 7 times. Phil Mickelson also won't be playing for the first time since 1995, as other players are more deserving. In fact, like you said, there are 6 rookies on the U.S. team as opposed to only 3 for Europe. Another advantage for Europe. As far as this camaraderie is concerned, U.S. has an obstacle to overcome. Teammates Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau have been carrying on a public feud for years. Tie's not going to be good enough. Americans have to win the cup, like you said, to take it away. I just don't see it happening. The only advantage the U.S. has is the fact that most European fans are staying home because of COVID. The fans are going to be like 90% in favor of the U.S.
And
usually it's
that'll
not
get
like
us
that.
there. Hopefully that'll get the U.S. over that hump. There's going to be in Wisconsin too, Joe. I think that wind off of Lake Michigan, well, like you said before, it's kind of like playing in Ireland.
Yeah, that's an advantage. The weather's going to be for the Europeans.
Yeah, those courses are way different. The North America courses are way different than the Europe courses.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that
That's why I can't
shapes up.
pick a winner,
I haven't
Joe.
actually seen them play the course. It's kind of hard to say.
It's very hard to say.
Yes. So we finally got into the NASCAR second round of the playoff. Moving on. Last week, pretty interesting race. Kevin Harvick and Elliot, Chase Elliott were racing. Elliot gets a flat tire because Harvick rubs up against his car. Elliot gets back on the track, gets in front of Harvick, and slows him down. So Elliot's teammate Kyle Larson can catch him and pass him. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, and then I didn't see that part, but I did see when Harvick drove up behind him and they had that little discussion at the end.
Is that what they had, a discussion? Is that what you want to call that? Okay.
It is NASCAR, Joe.
Yes. Rubbing is racing, right?
Rubbing is racing.
So now we move on.
And then they're at Bristol. That crazy.
Well,
track.
yeah, Bristol happens all the time. So now we move on to the second round. And where are we going and what's going to happen?
Well, Joe, I'd like to say I overlooked last week that Kyle Larson, he did make the cut into the round of 12 before the race started at Bristol. And Kyle did win his 6th victory and spoiled Joe Gibbs Racing's chance to sweep all 3 rounds in the first round. All 3 tracks in the first round, excuse me. So on to Vegas, where Larson is favored again at 7-2. But I really like Joey Logano. He's at this track. He's 10-1, and he has scored the most points in the past 5 years here in Nevada. He also is 1 point from the cut line for the round of 8. So I think that's going to give him a lot of motivation. Now, the driver that seems to have a few issues in the desert is Chase Elliott. In the last 3 races, he was 26, 22, and 13. Now, in the matchups, Harvick is matched up against Elliott, and Harvick's at a plus 110. Also in the matchups, Logano is at even money going up against Keselowski.
Keselowski?
And Martin Truex, my driver, he's at a minus 115, and he's going up against Denny Hamlin, which is a little bit tougher, I would think, but I still like him at a minus 115.
Yeah, that's the way to go. Bet NASCAR, betting the matchups. You can actually parlay the matchups. one guy only has to beat one guy instead of all the other drivers. And one last subject, I've noticed the World Cup, I know you're a big soccer fan, they're trying to maybe change it to every 2 years instead of 4 now?
Yeah, the World Cup is every 4 years, like you said, and Austin Wenger, who used to be the coach of Arsenal, which is in North London, is trying to get the World Cup every 2 years. They did have surveys done in all 6 nations, and it seems that the fans are on board with it, but the clubs are a little bit a different story. North America and Asia seem to be on board with it, but Europe and South America are not, and I'm not really sure. I couldn't find anything about Africa or Oceania. But when I'm at the book, Joe, and people are watching soccer that usually don't watch soccer, and they get really excited about it, that really excites me as well. And I think it is good for the sport in America. Don't know about the rest of the world, Joe, but I think it would be great in America.
Yeah, when you're already great, you don't need to do it every 2 years. Every 4 years is good enough. America could use it every 2 years just to get in would be nice.
Yeah, just to get in would be nice, correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Gator. And we'll have you on in a little while for the You Got Host segment.
Oh, I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you so much.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the moments we've all been waiting for. The stories that make us furious about bets that appeared surely to be winners, but in the end, something went horribly wrong, and they ended up being losers. It's the segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
So, Big Rich, how, did you get hosed somehow this week?
How did I get hosed? Well, I go on a family trip, and I go see my cousins down at Fresno State. I let him listen to the podcast, and he goes with Charles against his Uncle Richard. My nephew, Justin the Truth Martin, he takes Alabama and the 13.5, and then he doubles it up and takes his Fresno State against UCLA. So he double hosed me. My own family got hosed. He got a little bit of his uncle's money, but I'll get it back in the end. But I did get hosed.
So, Gator, did you get hosed last week, or do you know somebody who did?
Well, Joe, as you know, I don't bet. So I go off of what I saw last week, or Saturday night, where Eric Almirola started 3 points above elimination before the race at Bristol. And everything was going okay for him until in the second stage, he was black flagged for smoke and dropping fluid. Now, after he did get his pit and come back on, he did battle back to get into a good position and still would have made the cut until real late in the race when he got overtaken in points. So I think because of the pit stop, Eric got hosed, and he would have made it to the next round. So, Joe, do you have a You Got Hosed story?
Oh, yeah, I got one. So remember I was telling you in the You Got Hosed segment a couple of weeks ago how in one of my fantasy football drafts, I earned the right to select 5th because I won the 5th place game the year before, but my stupid commissioner screwed up and put me in the 6th slot. And now the player I wanted, Derrick Henry, was available when the 5th pick came around. But the guy I beat fair and square in the 5th place game last year took him one spot ahead of me. Remember I told you that?
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, okay. Well, sure enough, it didn't take long, as last week Derrick Henry goes off for 50 points, and I lose my game to, you guessed it, my idiot commissioner by 12 points. I've officially changed my team's name to Cheated Out of Derrick Henry because I continue to get hosed.
You got hosed.
So that's it for this week. I'd like to thank the Blue Bowl in Carson City, my guests Charles O'Laughlin, Big Richard Martin, Ronnie McKinnon, and Gator Gates, our producer, our engineer, our editor, and everyone for listening. We'd like you to visit our brand new Covering the Field website, and we'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Give us your feedback, your You Got Hosed moments, and any other comments you'd like to give us. And a special thank you again to all the firefighters and first responders battling the Nevada and California wildfires. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show, and you'll hear us again next week on another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to Covering the Field, a CM World Services and Lesage production.